What is up, YouTube and X? I have a super special guest, Steven Ellis from Daily Faceoff. He has a ton of different things just popped out with his 120 rankings. So I'm going to link that in the description. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm great, man. It's the busiest time of my entire life right now, just doing as many shows and collabs surrounding the draft as possible because obviously we had the combine and then you have the draft coming up in a couple days. So I just want to get your thoughts on a little bit of your top 120. I saw that obviously the Blackhawks have the third overall pick, and I think we probably have the same pick, Porter Martone. But do you get the sense that they will take somebody like Anton Frendel? And do you think that's a mistake?
No, I'll put it this way. There's a bunch of players they could take at number three that I would not consider a mistake. One being Martone, one being Hagens, one being Frundell. None of those guys would be a mistake to me. And because they're all different like they're all good in their own ways. Like Frundell, I'd say is the best power forward of the group. A guy that you compare him with a lot of other guys, he's going to take the responsibility away from them and he can focus on being a dominant physical presence while also having probably the best shot in the draft. Martone's in the top five for best shots in the draft. What a great release. He can pick it from anywhere, but he also developed a really good playmaking ability this year that hadn't been seen before. And his hockey sense in general is just among the top in the class. Then you look at Hagens, who I think might be the actual best centerman. In this draft outside. Like I'd say as a center, I think I almost like him a bit more than Misa. We'll see, but he's not big, so there's some issues there. But he could play with anyone, make magic with anyone. Like we saw that at the NTDP when he set the scoring records at the U18 World Championship and the U17 World Challenge. So I think there's a lot of people that are also looking at Hagens and like, yeah, this guy is going to be so special. So no, I do not think there's a wrong answer in any of those three in particular.
So I've heard also Desnoyers, who I was actually surprised you didn't say was the top center there because he had the best faceoff percentage, but he also played wing most of the year with the two bum wrist injuries. If they took a player like Desnoyers and solidified that 2C for a very long time, probably put Nazar up to the top line, do you also see that as more of a I can see that happening, or it would just be that that's a huge drop off from Martone, Hagens, and Frondel?
I'd say not definitely not a huge drop off. I'd say that's not who I'd pick, but he's a guy who's a proven winner, has won at every level. He plays a good two-way game. He moved to the wing this year due to injuries, and that he really still stayed effective. So there's that. But I think you're looking at that and you're still happy with the guy that like has played so much meaningful hockey already. Like that does matter to a lot of teams, especially for a young team that obviously needs a bit of everything right now. Now, having a guy who's 18 years old being one of your more successful players is not ideal, but I think there'd still be a decent pick out there for sure. Like there isn't a huge drop off from like three till like after Misa. There's not much of a drop off between like the 3 to 7 or 3 to 8.
Mhm.
So like that's like none of those picks would feel bad. It just depends on how you want to use those guys. So that's how I look at it.
Awesome. And obviously, my dogs love Day Norier. He was always barking when we talk about him. But I just want to ask you about your rankings. How long does that take you? How much hockey are you watching per day throughout the year? And just like sort of when did it start ramping up that the year where it was like, okay, I got to do 120, this is just what everybody wants.
It starts, the year before, really. Like you do some draft rankings, like I do like a one right after the draft that's just like here's the just guys you need to know. Then I do a preseason ranking. Then I do one I think in November. It's more like the early season bump. One around the World Juniors. One kind of before the U18s. One after the World Championship, and then this final one. So it's a bunch of rankings throughout the year. So the rankings start early. You got to start watching these guys in advance. Like some of these guys, like Martone, I've probably watched him play for 5 years at this point.
Mhm.
Like between like watching the U15, U16 level all the way to where he is today. So there's all that. And then you just kind of update it throughout the year. I watch as much hockey as I possibly can. Like during the day, I can watch sometimes 3 to 4 games, a lot of recaps, replays, things like that. Any clips I can get my hands on, and it's just a lot of hockey all the time because I'm also like my main part of my job is actually watching the NHL. So you're still doing that on top of that. So it's fun. Like it's just trying to get as many reports as possible, talking to people, learning from people, and just kind of going from there. So it's when you finally get the final rankings, it's like finally, all right, we're done. You know, don't think about it anymore. But every time you release it, it's still like, oh, did I make a mistake? Should I put this guy higher, this guy lower, type thing. So you're never like fully content. But right now at this point, like I do not plan on watching any hockey until the draft's over.
Nice, nice. And you mentioned you've been watching Porter Martone for the last, probably 5 years. And I asked Chris Peters this about his skating. He's obviously seen an incredible improvement on Porter Martone's skating, and I feel like that might be one of the reasons he could slip in this draft. But can you talk to me about what you see in Porter Martone's skating, and do you think it could be NHL average one day?
Well, 100%, 100%. Like I remember watching him in U16 level and like the dude couldn't move. He's come a long way. Like I feel like the whole skating thing is so overblown and it is for many reasons. One, I will always bring up Jason Robertson was a terrible skater in his draft. Far worse than Porter Martone is. Are we looking at Jason Robertson being a failure? Absolutely not. Like if Martone was like the 10th best prospect, I don't think skating gets mentioned. It's only because he's kind of up there in the top five, and at one point was like a potential one or two that's kind of been mentioned the way it is. So I don't really look at it too much. Like if you're mad that your team drafted him because you hear his skating is not great, it's like his skating has come such a far way without having NHL coaches. You give him NHL coaches to spend time with him, he's going to figure out. Like that's the one. I'd rather have a guy be like you want to be a good skater, like that will always open up opportunities, but hockey sense to me is more important. And in a lot of cases, like if you could shoot from anywhere like he can, or you make the plays he can, that offsets a lot of the issues. If the one thing you got to work on is your skating, the good news is that's one of the things that can be transformed with the right coaching. So that's why I'm not too worried about it there.
Yeah, especially if he goes to the NCAA, he's going to be skating 4 times a week. The NHL coaches are going to be able to get that out of him. And, when we were talking, you said about his playmaking ability and also his vision is very underrated. I think his shot is incredible. When I watch his shot, my jaws dropped on Instat. Shout out Instat because I watched so much film on there. But I heard like 6 months ago, you said Porter Martone could potentially be a 40 goal scorer one day in the NHL. Do you still see that? And if will he need a player like Connor Bedard on his line for him to reach that potential?
I still think he can get 40 goals. Like that's the thing. Like you asked most scouts and they were expecting 50 this year. So for him to not even reach 40 was a bit of a surprise, but there's a few things to take into account. Like he was a close to doubled his assist count. So like he really became a much better passer than I think most people give him credit for. And I still think he's got top five shot in this draft. So now that he's got that more rounded offensive game kind of figured out, I would like to go see him when he gets to the NHL, start firing more shots, take more opportunities. Like it was to me, it was a joke that Hockey Canada did not play him more at the World Juniors. Like this is a guy that would be perfect for the power play, given how good he shoots. And watching him in Brampton, and it was him and Carson Raykopf. And when Raykopf showed up, Raykopf was more of the shooter, and that allowed Martone to focus on being a passer. But when Raykopf wasn't there, Martone was the guy shooting all the pucks. So I think that with him, I'm not too worried about him not putting up a ton of goals because he's got this ability to just release shots, kind of like Cole Eiserman did a year ago in a way very few players can. And he's got, again, one of the best shots, one of the best passers. He can hit guys. Like there's a lot to love about his game.
Yeah, I completely agree that he's top five. I would say Carbonneau, Frondel, Cam Schmidt, maybe Martone slots in at four, or I mean, definitely top five though. Um, and also like Hockey Canada love this guy. Even though he only played 10 minutes for 3 games and even scored a goal, then his play got lower and lower. You saw a different guy playing it with the men. And I mean, his pace was actually phenomenal. So I actually thought that was pretty awesome. And you also had Kayshawn Aitchison as your second defenseman off the board.
Yeah.
I think consensus is more Murtko or Jackson Smith, but Kayshawn Aitchison at 26 goals shows a lot of physicality. What do you think his projectability is in the NHL, and what makes you love him so much to put him in your top 10
He
or 11?
reminds me of he reminds me a lot of Jacob Trouba, where the whole point is to try and make yourself as difficult to play against as possible. Like I've mentioned this many times where it's fun watching him where he'll land a big hit and then he'll like stare down the guy expecting to have to drop the gloves, but nobody wants to drop the gloves against him because he's so difficult to play against, so top, and I love him for that. So yeah, Cash Money, man, he's a throwback player that just he goes out there to hurt. He's not like massive by any means. He's not like this 6'4", 6'5" defenseman. He's not Radim Murka size. But what I think about him is that he prioritizes playing defense more than some of these other guys. Like with Radom Murka, actually right before I did this, I actually was writing a story about him. The thing about him is Murka takes a bit too many risks for my liking and can't capitalize. With Aitchison, it feels like he plays to what he's capable of. I don't think anyone saw him scoring 26 goals this year. Like that's crazy. Will that carry over to the next level? No. And also, if we're talking about skating, like Porter Martone's a better skater than Kashan Aitchison. So that's the thing. We're not talking about different people skating, but I feel like he's going to be a guy that is just going to be so difficult to play against. I love Jackson Smith. I really like Radom Murka, but I feel like in terms of actually being a difficult defenseman to play against, I like Aitchison, and that's why I put him ahead of out of those other guys.
Yeah, I think Aitchison has a higher floor than Murka, but I think Murka might have a tad bit higher ceiling. I mean, 6'5" or 6'6" right-handed defenseman played in Czech 16, played against Yager. We had a funny moment at the combine where he said he couldn't try to hit him because he was so elusive. I think Murka is awesome. Obviously, I think he's my defenseman number two, but somebody in the top 10 as well is that could be flying up the boards, maybe to four to Utah, would be somebody like Brady Martin. And can you tell me a little bit about him? And do you think it would be a little high to take him number four overall in front of most of the players that we have in the tier higher?
The argument for taking him number four is because you want to pick guys that you win with, and Brady Martin is absolutely a player you win with. You look at what Brad Marchand just did. You look at what Sam Bennett just did, and there's some similarities there to the way that he hits. Like he's probably the hardest hitting forward in this draft class. He's afraid of nothing. He's smart. He works hard. His skating is fine, not great, but his work ethic kind of makes up for that. If he didn't work as hard as he did, he would be nowhere near as good. But you kind of see that farm upbringing, right? The guy that just can go out there and just wants to win every single battle. So I think his skating is gonna pay off, or eventually be a payoff here, because if you look at what he had to do this year, it was less focusing on skating and more focusing on being everything for the Greyhounds. Now that when he gets drafted and doesn't have to prove himself, I think that's where his skating is going to come through, and that's where it'll catch up. Like he's high end, he's a high end shooter, a really good passer. Like you saw those plays at the U18s when he played with other skill guys, the stuff he could do, and he also scored one of the greatest goals I've ever seen at the OHL Cup, which like is one of my favorite events because that's when you get to see these guys early. He went end to end and scored one of the most beautiful goals you're ever going to see. He's got so much skill. He's been used to carrying teams on his back, and he's the guy where if Utah takes him at number four and they're playing in a playoff battle, like this is the guy who's going to shine for them. So I like him. Yeah, he doesn't have as much like offensive upside as some of these other guys, but he still scored like a quiet 33 goals this year. Like it's not like he sucks offensively. So you throw that all together, there's a lot to like, and he's one of my favorite players.
Yeah, really underrated offensive ability. This guy's 170 pounds, but plays like he's 300, especially with the hits. I actually wanted to do a video of like a hit specialist just to figure out why players are just hurting after he hits them, because he is like a bulldozer. He obviously said that he was worried about his chores on the farm. I mean, he is a farm boy. I love that about him. So Lyndon Lakovich at 25, he's somebody that grew a ton. At first in the WHL, he was just trying to dangle through two defenders, didn't really know how to play that 200-foot game. What do you see with Lyndon Lakovich, and what is his upside that he's bringing to an NHL club?
He's kind of like he reminds me a bit of maybe Dylan Cousins with a little less skill. Like he's a good skater for his size, really good passer, shooter. Like love that stuff for him. Um, the he's also quite smart. Like the one I remember watching with the CHL USA series where he created two breakaways in the same game by just being like, okay, he sees this little bit of an opening. I'm going to cheat a little bit. I'm going to try to exploit this, but it's going to work out. And he had two really good opportunities. So I like that he knows how to read those opportunities really well. And he was one of my bigger folders in the first round, not because of him. There were just other guys I liked more. And like I actually really like Lakovic. And if he goes like 14, 15, 16, like I get it. I understand it. Teams want to bet on that big size. I wish he used his frame a bit more to be a bit more physical. That is something that he is not the greatest at. Like but at the same time, you're not necessarily needing him to be this power forward force. Like if you can have him be a Dylan Cousins or just being like a more like a skilled type of Uri Slavkovsky type player. Like you're still getting a really good guy there. So the technical ability is there, the size is obviously there. He's always thinking, like I'd say his hockey sense might be the best part about him. But yeah, like we'll see what he's able to do at the next level.
Yeah, Lyndon Lakovich said there his agent told him that it was about 10 to 20 is the range, and he's very comfortable with that. I could see a team like Columbus with the 14th and 20th pick, maybe one of those slots. But you had two Muskegon players in your top 40, and one of them was Ivan Ryabkin, and the other was Vaslav Nestrasil, who is a Blackhawks target at 25 or 34. Can you tell me a little bit about Ivan Ryabkin? Because he didn't sound like he had the best combine based on what like everybody had heard, as well as we didn't really get to talk to him at the media scrum. So can you tell me about Ivan Ryabkin and what you saw?
Well, I'll say about the combine, like at least the physical results really don't matter. Like they're not doing pull-ups during an NHL game. So if they start doing that, that's when I'll care a bit more. But Ryabkin, I've kind of the guy I like comparing him to is like Ridley Gregg. He's always bringing energy. He wants to hit you hard. For a guy who's, I think he's under 6 foot, but he's like over 200 pounds and he hits hard. Like he's a different player than Brady Martin, who is taller, thinner, but hits like a truck. This guy is smaller, but bigger physically, and he goes out there and also hits like a truck. I feel like he's not great transitionally. Like there's points where he kind of gets lost trying to go from defense to offense, but when he starts in the defensive zone, I feel like if you give him a defensive zone like face-off situation, he's going to be pretty good in his own zone. Offensively, he could do some stuff there too. I just you never know what you're going to get from him, and I feel like that's the issue. Like his goal scoring rate, like he probably could have finished with 35, 40 goals had he played a full year in the USHL, but obviously he didn't. His skating for me kind of holds him back, and I feel like that was part of what caused him some issues in his when he played in the MHL, where he just didn't couldn't keep up with the pace against guys he should have, and he can make some kind of wonky decisions with the puck. So there's that, but I still think that a guy that was highly rated for a reason, and that's because he is a good passer. He's very good at the puck, and if you focus on having him do things with the puck as opposed to away from it, I think he's way more effective. So he fell for me. Wasn't sure how far he was going to fall, but I feel like putting him in like the top 40, top 45 is also part of a sign of just like there's not a lot of guys to love after that point, anyways. I feel like he'll be an NHL player. I just don't know how good of an NHL player he'll be.
Yeah, when I saw that ranking, for me it was belief because a lot of players or a lot of scouts that I've talked to don't have Ryabkin as high anymore, and it wasn't the physical on the combine. It was more of the character concerns, and I'm not in that room, so it was only the Cam Robinson tweets that I was reading, the articles that he puts out, which is great at Elite Prospects. But one of the players is also Vaslav Nestrasil, and obviously 6'6" forward. And in the first 8 games of the USHL last year, he didn't really he didn't total a point, and then it was just a different man out there this year. What can you tell me about Vaslav Nestrasil, and do you think that he could be a first line player with his ceiling?
First line, I don't think so. Like I'm thinking you're maybe hoping he becomes a second line player. Like he's a very hardworking guy. He's got that big frame that you're looking for, and he's a bit more physical than some other guys at that, like more physical than Lakovic, for example. His skating, like it feels like it takes him a bit to kind of get that first or those couple strides to get him to his max speed. But when he's at speed, he's got that big body to kind of back him up there. And will he be a power forward type player? Yeah, I think we'll see. Like, I don't think most scouts even really paid much attention to him for the first half of the year, but the second half was where he really showed he could do a whole lot of everything. He's good at both ends of the ice. He's like a lot of plays coming the other way. He can stop in the neutral zone. He can hit guys. He can win battles along the boards. Like he uses his size effectively without being like too monstrous and like kind of like a watching Protoss of the Capitals to an extent. I don't know how their size compare completely, but it feels like their ability to just win battles along the boards and stop plays from coming into the defensive zone kind of similar there. So if he gets taken late in the first round, I get it. Feels like second round's a little more safer though.
Is there like a surprise prospect that could go in the first round that you think hasn't been talked about much or is overlooked?
Like he would be like the guy I'd probably pick. The top of my head, Riker Lee would be an interesting one to see. Like Riker Lee's a guy that grew a lot. I remember watching him with the USA Lincoln Gretzky training camp like 2 years ago, and he looked really small. Like he was getting shoved around pretty easily by his own teammates. Not exactly an issue anymore. He's still not like this beast of a physical player, but I believe he's like 6 foot now, so he's got that size that will help him work out there. Good hands too, which is very nice. And if he can be a bit quicker when he goes to college, I think that will be beneficial for him. But I have him at 29. I really like him. I was honestly trying to decide between him and Cameron Schmidt, but I think Lee's added frame gives him a bit of a boost there. Although Schmidt's got like an outstanding shot.
Yeah, Schmidt is extremely talented. Riker Lee actually at the combine, he grew from 5'7" to 6 foot. And I actually asked him because we were standing next to each other, how his game has kind of, how he had to change his game with that added height, and has that allowed him to, be a different player? And he actually said, yeah. So I thought that was really interesting to talk to Riker Lee at the combine because he is somebody I'm higher on too. I have a first round. I have him in my first round. Can you tell me about the drop off in this class and how many first round picks you think that you have graded? Because I've heard, from ranges of 24 to 34 or something like that. A lot of scouts have it differently, but where is your drop off of the first round where it really starts to get weaker?
I think 26 or 27, where you look like the Blake Fiddlers and the Sasha Bowman BDN. Like those are the guys where I'm looking at that. I'm like, okay, after that, I'm like, don't really love it. Like kind of just figuring out who to put at 32 and 33. I'm like, okay, this is not really as much fun as it was in previous years. So, I like Milton Gastrin. I think he's kind of underrated. I think Joshua Ravensbergen, he'll get taken the first round. I like Malcolm Spence. Don't know if his ceiling's super high, but his floor is good. As much as I hate those terms. But yeah, I'd say for yeah, like 20, 26, 27. That's where I'm like I feel comfortable. And then after that, it's just like after that, I don't love you, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Milton Gastrin a lot. Really good leader with Sweden. He can get to the center of the ice. He's not afraid to take a hit to make a play. I want to talk to you about the Golden Gophers defensive commits. They have Maceo Phillips as well as Jacob Brombach. And I love these two. They are both over 6'5". They both bring different elements to the game. I saw that Jacob was ranked, I think, 47 or somewhere around there in your rankings. Can you tell me a little bit about those two?
Yeah, so Rombach's a guy that he's got the 6'6" body and he likes to make people pay for that. Like he could stop you. His whole point is like you want to get near my goalie? Wrong, not happening, not possible. Good shutdown defender.
Yeah.
The thing drawing him back is that he's just got kind of no offense to his game at all. So I think that's something where it's like, okay, well, that's just you're drafting him to be a third pairing defenseman, and I think the same could be said for Maceo Phillips, who's just massive, like human. Just I remember seeing him up close. It's like, whoa, this guy could fight a brick wall and probably win.
Yeah.
So, very strong. Always looks to make a big hit. Skates well too. So there's that. Teams looking for just adding some size and mobility. I think you're going to like him there, but I don't know if he's anything more than a third pairing.
What about someone like Prokhorov?
That's one that great question. We'll see where he goes. He's got that size. He likes to muscle dudes, and he can be tough to play against there too. So second round feels fine. Third round we'll see there, but just kind of see how his skating comes along.
That's awesome. Yeah, the range of where he could go is absolutely nuts. Players that I also wanted to talk about, Anton Frundell, he didn't really need, but Victor Eklund was driving a lot of the play. And I keep hearing that Victor Eklund could be a faller. I mean, a faller, he's still going to be drafted in the top 13, 14, 15. But can you tell me a little bit about Victor Eklund's game and how you can see that, his projectability?
Yeah, like if he falls, I think it's because teams are just looking more for a centerman in a lot of cases, and it just won't be his fault. But um, and defensively, he's not great, but he's actually quite skilled. He can hit guys despite not being that big. He's watching him at the World Junior Summer Showcase was really special because I remember seeing him. Like I was watching at ice level for a couple of those games, and what he was doing with the puck, where it's like, whoa, I didn't see that pass coming. Like that was impressive, and he was getting fed a lot of passes on the power play, and I thought he looked good there. When it comes to what Eklund's capable of, like anywhere from 7 to 13 or 14, I feel like makes sense. And I just like that when he gets the puck on the stick, something often happens.
And I've heard from a lot of people that Jake O'Brien might be a lock to Philadelphia, and I think it would be a really interesting fit for him. Can you tell me a little bit about his game and what you saw with him and Nick Lardis this year? Because they didn't play on the same line, but they certainly scored a lot together on that power play.
Nick Lardis is lucky he had Jake O'Brien to
Yeah.
just feed him passes. I'll just say that. But really smart playmaker. Like the puck is always on his stick. It feels like his off puck play is quite good too. He's never going to beat you with pure skill. Like I don't think he's going to be a high end offensive threat in the NHL, but he's going to work hard in all three zones, and that's going to allow him to be a very effective NHL player. Yeah, there's other guys that are going to put up more points than him in this draft, but I feel like he's going to be a safe bet to be at least a very effective all around forward.
And obviously Nick Lardis, can you tell me about his upside, you think? And do you think he's a true top six player? I know he's getting a lot of hype right now from Blackhawks fans.
So I've asked a lot of scouts about what they think about Nick Lardis, including some people watch him super duper close. And I don't know if there's a lot of people who think he's going to be an NHL player at all. And puts up a lot of points, but this is a very good skater, but does a lot of standing around for his goals, which is fine. But I feel like using that speed more effectively is something he's got to do. Like he focused so much on being a better shooter, and I feel like he's got to be able to use that speed he has to go out there and take over at the next level. I think there's going to be a bunch of other small guys that are going to try to take over. So like I think that also kind of hurts him. You can't have all these 5'10", 5'11" guys in the lineup, but I feel like I like Frankie Nazar more and I like Oliver Moore more as all around players, but I still think that there's a guy here who can put a lot of pucks in the net if given the right opportunity. But I do think that work ethic's got to be there where he's got to be able to fight for pucks himself and not just rely on his line mates. So we'll see.
Yeah,
I
he
like
needs
him
a
though
lot
because
to work on.
he's from Oakville, Ontario, which is where I'm from. Like I saw him watching him play in rinks that I was at from a very young age. Like he stood out from an early age, and I'd love to see him move it, just put together this everything in the NHL. But we'll see.
Yeah, as a Blackhawks fan, I really, really want that. You kind of scared me, put some heartbreak in my heart. No, but I totally understand it. He's got a lot to work on. But can you talk to me about Artem Levshunov and Rinzel and what you kind of see with them and kind of their upside too? Because obviously a lot of fans were disappointed that we didn't take Demidov. I was on the Demidov train, but obviously Artem is a great player. So I just want your thoughts.
Yeah, Levshunov's like one of the best defensive prospects in hockey. Is he Ivan Demidov? No, but they're when you looked at what you were trying to do when you look what the Blackhawks were trying to do last year, it's like okay, we need a high end defenseman. If we don't get Schaefer this next year, well, actually, last year at this time, Schaefer wasn't like this high end defenseman. Like some people thought Logan Hensler was going to go ahead of him. I think you look at that and say, go get the guy you need right now. And reality was a big right hand shot defenseman was something that Blackhawks could definitely use. So I really like that pick, even though that's like wasn't the best player available. I think what he showed in his limited NHL time and obviously what he did in the AHL is this guy's going to be very good very soon. And he makes someone like Kevin Korchinski a bit more expendable, as does Sam Renzel, because Renzel is playing at a level that I don't think anyone really expected. And my colleague Frank Saravelli's been very high on him for a while. As a guy's like, yep, this dude's going to be playing in the NHL right away, and he did. And I feel like he's big and it's like just smart enough in his own zone that he's probably not going to put up a ton of points in the NHL, but he's not going to lack some of that creativity that I think a lot of people expected from him. And I think he's going to be able to shut down guys defensively. So I really like Sam Renzel.
Yeah, taking a high school player is somewhat of like a Family Guy mystery box. It could be a boat or it could be a boat. So the thing is, like with Sam Renzel, I think Frank Saravalli called him Brock Faber, which I really liked. To kind of made me excited to go see him. But can you talk to me about kind of your favorite player and prospect in this class? Somebody that kind of shocked you when you were watching him this year?
It's Brady Martin. Brady Martin for
Oh,
sure. Like I think that you watch him and that's a guy every team wants out there. Like last year, my all around player I liked was Teddy Stiga, and Teddy Stiga went on and scored the game winning goal for USA
yeah.
at the World Juniors. He's only shot. I was a little surprised when that was that. I remember tweeting that. And I'm like, really? He had no shots, but yeah, that was the case. With him, I just that work ethic is amazing, and I appreciate that he wants to win every shift, but also a guy that talking to guys he's played with or even against, and this is a player who's going to mesh well in any change room because everyone really likes spending time with him. He's a funny guy. He's cracking jokes all the time. He's laid back, but he knows when he's got to be intense. And you put that together, and it's a guy that you want on your team no matter what. He's the guy that will like die basically for your team. He'll block every shot to make sure you win.
His player comps were actually Sam Bennett, Tom Wilson, and then there was someone else that I can't remember. But what a time to pick Sam Bennett as your player comp at the combine there with the Conn Smythe going there. But and congratulations to Panthers fans. But you know, Matthew Schaefer had 22 points, and I know you talked about this on you know, on Daily Faceoff today. But is it a little weary? And are you a little concerned about Matthew Schaefer? Because obviously the year before he was incredible defensively. This year he silenced a lot of doubters with his offensive output. Can you talk about Matthew Schaefer a little bit and what you kind of see um like with the 22 points? It's kind of unheard of for a prospect going number one.
Here are the number of concerns I have for him. Zero, not one, not a single concern. Like his brain is just I wish we could clone it and put it in every defenseman. He's so smart, so elusive. Like he could have probably been the top defenseman this year with one arm. Like I'm very confident in what Matthew Schaefer brings to the table, and pretty much most scouts I talk to have him as the guy they would take number one. And it's a shame we didn't get to see him more, but there's certain prospects that can get injured and you're not too worried about. Like Carter Bear, I like him a lot, but Matthew Schaefer like every time he hit the ice, nobody could keep up with him. He was going to be one of the best players of the World Juniors, like not just one of the best Canadian players, one of the best players in general, regardless of position. So a shame we didn't get to kind of see him after that first period against Latvia. Imagine how different that tournament could have been for Canada had he stayed healthy. But I think that I'm looking at this and saying no concerns whatsoever.
I know Michael Misa couldn't perform there, and he was kind of Matthew Schaefer was the talk of the town for the first game in 4 minutes, but after they lost him, Sam Dickinson, the breakup passes just weren't there as much. You could kind of see the entire flow of the game change. Matthew Schaefer is almost a year younger than a lot of these other prospects, so it is something to kind of look at here. I wanted to ask you about like Gavin McKenna because obviously he's Connor Bedard's cousin by marriage. Do you see McKenna having kind of a similar hype to Connor Bedard next year?
I think so. Like he's a bit more physical, so they're not like identical players, but you see the point totals, you see the shot, you see what he's been able to do when he needs to take over, and like that skill, like there hasn't been a more pure skilled prospect since Connor Bedard. So I'm excited to see McKenna. Like I got to see, if you remember that Canada versus USA game at the U18s, I was there, and the media row was like only a couple levels above ice, but I watched the end of the game from ice level, and holy man, what a talent that guy is. And I had some cool pictures of him like pointing to the camera in celebration, which is cool. But Gavin McKenna is a guy every team is going to want to lose for. Like Matthew Schaefer is one hell of a defensive prospect, but nobody was going to want to lose to the same level as they will next year with Gavin McKenna. So that's it's gonna. I don't know what we're calling that race to get him next year, but it's gonna be a fun one.
Miserable for McKenna, I think it is in the Hawks Twitterverse. But I have you ranked number three as my goalie prospect this year based on some of the highlights I've seen on your Twitter. And I mean it's just incredible what you do out there. Yeah, look at who's your sponsor. Oh, okay. I actually have the exact same one. I have it down below in my bed. Um it's funny. Um, but can I talk to you about your favorite goalie prospect? I know you had Jack, I think 40 something, 48 or something, and then you had Ravensburgen, 6'5" WHL goalie who performed pretty well. What do you see as his potential, and do you think that he is elite with that size?
100%. Ravensburgen, like Ivan Kovic's my favorite goalie, but Ravensburgen is the one that like clearly is the best of the best right now because he's got that size, he's got that athleticism. Like you'll find with some of the bigger goalies, like Mansgoo, for example, a guy that's big but not super athletic. But when you look at what Ravensburgen is, like he will never give up on a play. Like when NHL scouts are watching me play goalie, they notice that I'm not square to shooters. I'm like Dominic Hasek or Tim Thomas rolling around, but it works, and that's why I'm going to go first overall in the draft. But when you look at Joshua Ravensbergen, who's nowhere as good as me, he's got that size, he's got that glove hand, he's calm in the net, and watching him have to deal with so many high quality chances basically the minute he stepped into the WHL, and he handled it well, like that was impressive. So I think that Ravensbergen's going to be an NHL starting goalie. I like Ivan Kovic. I think as like I like him the same way I like Dustin Wolf. And for reference, Dustin Wolf, I had him, I think it was 22nd in my draft rankings the year he came out. I think it got drafted like 2000th overall in the seventh round. So
Yeah.
watching, well, like I fully believe in Ivan Kovic. I know he's small, but he really makes up for it by really the way he keeps the glove up in the air and takes away that space. And he's got a great glove hand in particular, super athletic, moves as well as any goalie. So those are my two favorite in this draft. And I'm number three.
And Frank, his father, Jack's father, is 6'5", and he was also a former goalie. So 5'11" Jack is like, where's the height going? But he is, if he has a growth spurt, that would obviously be a great case. And I do want to pour some cold water on the number one pick because I have heard that Steven Ellis is not going to be the number one pick on the draft board. It could be Schaefer. I know that comes as disappointment to the fans out there. But I do want to talk to you about, the time that you've been probably the most shell-shocked or very just like, oh my God, this is my life. Kind of that moment in your journey of stardom as you are in the scouting world. So has there ever been that moment that you're like, I'm here, your NHL moment?
Last year, being at the draft in Vegas was really cool. Like I've been to a few drafts, but being at the Sphere and seeing like this is my job. I get to go to places like this. Like this is awesome. This is great, and it's awesome. Like when I got a I graduated from university in 2018. I had an internship with the Hockey News, and it was great. Like outstanding experience. Moved out to Calgary for a bit, worked for Canadian Press, and then they got rid of a bunch of jobs there. Came back. I was able to get back with the Hockey News, and it was an amazing experience learning from guys like Ken Campbell and Ryan Kennedy, guys who've been going to drafts for millions of years. And Ken Campbell, I'm pretty sure he probably invented the draft. He's so old. Love you, Ken. He like learning from those guys and seeing how like the draft is handled is great, and seeing how draft rankings are put together and the draft guide, it was awesome. And when I joined Daily Faceoff and got the opportunity to be like the guy for prospects, that was awesome. That was that having Matt Larkin and Frank Saravelli kind of believing in that and being able to lead, that's been great. And the people I've gone to talk to and work with and meet and everything like that has been great. Like you look at the prospect community and you see guys like Scott Wheeler, Corey Proman, Chris Peters, like you name it, a lot of great people in it. And it's fun seeing everybody at these events. And again, there's a lot worse things to be doing than covering hockey for a living. So it's a good time. My wife
Yeah.
doesn't care about hockey in the slightest. So, and I'm like, hey, like World Juniors gonna spend 2 weeks like in this place. She's like, but you're missing Christmas. I'm like, but it's the World Juniors, and she doesn't care.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Just the support that you guys have, and also shout out Cam Robinson too, because he's also one of the greats. And it's awesome to just like talk to you because obviously back in June I had asked you some advice on how to get started, and I took that to heart. And you told me just to take any opportunity. So it is awesome, of your journey. Could you tell me about a time where you feel that it was the best experience you've ever had watching a game live, maybe a prospect or that Gavin McKenna moment? Like, yeah.
It's easily that Gavin McKenna moment for sure, 100%. Like seeing him take control and score, I think it was what, 4 goals against the Americans. Like that was awesome at the U18s. And I'll also say watching Mason McTavish make that save with his stick at the 22 World Juniors in Edmonton, a tournament where nobody showed up up until the end. It was kind of a rough go for that. And trying to get people to like really care about it. Like I do a lot of like TV stuff during the World Juniors in December, but have a tournament in August and none of those TV networks even know this tournament's happening. Like it was kind of a weird situation. But with the moment McTavish made that save and the way that crowd erupted was great. Latvia beating Canada and seeing the contrast of usually when an underdog team wins, everyone goes nuts. But they beat the hosts, and that's where everyone was like, "Oh my God!" Like that was wild. I was sitting with Jeff Merrick the whole game, and he the whole time was like, "Canada's not winning this. Canada's not winning this." I'm like, "What are you talking about? They're gonna figure out." It's like, "Oh no!" Even though they outshot them like 2,000 to like 5, it didn't matter because Latvia ended up winning when it mattered, and that was special. I'd say actually one of my favorite games I ever got to go to was not prospect related. There were some NHL prospects in it, but nobody like too notable. I got to see Greece versus Jamaica last year in Oshawa, Ontario. Jamaica had Devonnie Smith, who plays in the NHL, I believe Flyers now. There were some other guys that were kind of cool, but it was like over 100 penalty minutes, like just a 3.5 hour game, just nonstop trying to kill each other. One guy got kicked out for making fun of a referee's mustache. Another guy got kicked out, took his jersey off and put a new one on to see if the ref would even
Oh
notice. The
my
ref did.
God.
I thought those were pretty funny. And then right after that was Lebanon versus Puerto Rico, and I left after the first period. It was like 0-0. I had to go drive to Montreal, and I get home and I see the score, and it was like 9-8. I'm like, what the fuck did I just miss? So clearly, I should have stuck
Oh my
around.
God.
Didn't think this game would have been worth sticking around for,
Yeah.
especially since that first game was so long that like the second game got delayed by like an hour because of it. I'm like, okay, I can't stick here anymore. That was a mistake. I missed a barn burner.
Were you there for Bedard when he did that incredible move against Slovakia?
No, what we did, I didn't go for that one. It would have been good, obviously, for that crowd, but no, that was, I watched that one of my parents, and that was always fun. Like, I grew up watching the World Juniors every year, with my parents. So I always like when I'm not at the tournament, I always make sure I'm watching with them. And it feels weird when I'm there and not watching with them. But watching that move on TV with them, we had a bunch of other people over to watch. Like they're like, "Oh, that was like the coolest thing ever," and that was what really kind of showed just how good Connor Bedard could be.
Do you think Connor Bedard wins a Stanley Cup with the Blackhawks?
Yes. I think the Blackhawks are going to eventually figure it out. San Jose will too, but they're going to figure it out. I'm not too worried about it. It's just get him some help sooner rather than later because I know Ryan Donato was very good for that team, but like Ryan Donato should not be putting up that many points on a team because he should not be playing that high in a lineup. So we'll see what happens. But I still like what like Bedard's still special, and anyone who's kind of written him off, you're doing a mistake, making a mistake, just like a lot of people did with Nathan McKinnon and Jack Hughes.
And Nathan McKinnon obviously had a high praise for Bedard. And also, Ryan Donato just signed 4 year, $16 million deal, which is the exact same deal Brian Bickle signed in 2013, which I always find really funny because it destroyed Teuvo Teravainen because he had to get shipped off to the Canes. Not destroyed. I mean, it helped him very much and he got to play playoffs. But my last question is, would you rather have Gavin McKenna or the first and second overall picks in this class?
Wow. Um, I'd say the first and second picks this year, you get more value for it. Yeah, you wouldn't get the better player, but
Mhm.
we also know that having the best player doesn't mean guaranteed success. The Edmonton Oilers have not won the Stanley Cup yet. With the guys they have, Pittsburgh didn't win the Stanley Cup every single year with Crosby and Malkin. So I would say take the two guys and just kind of see where you go.
Well, this is going to end like a Hot Ones episode. There's cameras here, here, and here. Tell everybody where they can find you and what you're doing next.
Well, first off, I should do hot ones because I have no sense of smell, and I also my taste buds like barely exist. So I get like
Oh wow.
I had a ghost chili pepper before my last ball hockey game. So like I'll just do it just because I can. So the
Did
hot
you even
stuff won't bother
notice?
me.
Did you
It doesn't
notice the
bother me.
ghost pepper?
Doesn't bother me. So like the hot stuff, man, it'd be like the lamest episode ever. But yeah, yeah, check out dailyfaceoff.com. That's where all my content's going. Got draft content leading up every day up until the draft ends. Gonna do I just did my draft rankings, of course. A lot more content coming up daily, and then I will also have breakdowns of how every team did at the draft just minutes after the draft finishes. So definitely an exciting time if you follow prospects.
That is awesome. I'm going to link all of that in the description to everywhere you can find Steven, as well as his rankings of 120. It is awesome read. So thank you so much for joining me and like and subscribe and peace out.